Why are so many ships registered in Liberia?
Though most are owned by foreign corporations and spend little time in Liberian territorial waters. Many ships register in Liberia because of its low fees for registering ocean vessels. Over 1,600 ships are registered there, giving Liberia one of the world's largest merchant fleets.
Why do they speak French in Quebec?
Most of Quebec speaks French because the French founded the city of Quebec. One of the oldest cities in North America, in the 17th century. Quebec served as the capital of the surrounding New France until the British took control of the territory in 1763. Even though it was ruled by the British from the 18th century onward. The region that was once held by France has remained a center of French culture and language in North America. The differences in culture between the province of Quebec and the rest of Canada have been so extreme that there are strong secessionist forces within Quebec that want Quebec to become its own country. Though 2 referendums for Quebec's independence have been voted upon in Canada-wide elections, both the 1980 and 1995 referendums failed to pass. But these failures have not quieted Quebec's secessionist forces. And it is likely that future referendums will be held. If passed, many believe that the secession of Quebec would dissolve the loose Canadian Federation.
Where are hot springs used by people around the world?
Hot spring baths have been used in cultures throughout the world since ancient times. They are found in such places as Japan, Taiwan, Australia, the United States, Iceland, and Sicily.
Who is an Ayatollah?
The title of Ayatollah was originally used for outstanding Shiite scholars. But in 1979 Iran went through a period of fundamentalism and replaced the secular Shah. The former leader, with the Ayatollah, a religious and political leader of the nation. Under the Ayatollah's rule, traditional social values were mandated.
What are the largest metropolitan areas in the United States?
The New York metropolitan area is America's largest, with 20 million people. Los Angeles is second with 15 million, Chicago is third with 8.5 million, Washington, D.C., is fourth with 7 million, and San Francisco is fifth with 6.5 million.
When was January 1st chosen as the beginning of the year?
In Caesar's calendar modifications of 46 CE, he decreed that the year would begin on January 1 instead of March 25, as it had in the past. At that time Caesar also designated number of days in each month, unchanged to the present day.
How many time zones does China have?
Since China is such a large country, it should span 5 time zones. But the entire country uses one time 8 hours ahead of UTC.
Where is Indochina?
Indochina is the peninsula in Southeast Asia composed of Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and the mainland portion of Malaysia. During the colonial era, the eastern portion of Indochina was ruled by France and the west was ruled by Britain.
What is the Green Revolution?
The Green Revolution began in the 1960s as an effort by international organizations, especially the United Nations, to help increase the agricultural production of less developed nations. Since that time, technology has helped improve crop output, which is reaching all-time highs throughout the world.
Which river carries the most water?
By far, Brazil's Amazon River carries more water to the sea than any other river in the world. The discharge at the mouth of the river is about 7 million cubic feet, 170,000 cubic meters, per second, which is about 4 times the flow of the Congo in Africa. The river ranks second in terms of discharge. It would take the Amazon only about 28 days to fill up Lake Erie. The Yangtze, Brahmaputra, Ganges, Yenisei, and Mississippi are other rivers with very high discharges.
How are different types of climates classified?
The German climatologist Olademir Koppen developed a climate classification system that is still used today, albeit with some modifications. He classified climates into 6 categories: tropical humid, dry, mid-latitude, severe mid-latitude, polar, and highland. He also created subcategories for 5 of these classifications. His climate map is often found in geography texts and atlases.
What should I do in the event of a flood?
If a flood is expected, turn on your battery-powered radio. and listen for information about when and where to evacuate. If a flood or flash flood is coming toward you, move quickly to a higher elevation, but don't ever try to outrun a flood. Also, don't drive through standing water, as it can quickly rise and stall your vehicle, possibly trapping you among swift water.
How many potentially hazardous asteroids is NASA tracking that could impact the Earth in the 21st century?
More than 210 FOS are on NASA's list of most likely objects whose orbital paths may bring them close to Earth's orbit sometime in the next 100 to 200 years. Scientists have not fully calculated the risks because they still need to figure out the effects of gravity of various planetary bodies on the exact course of the asteroids.
What is a perpetual resource?
Perpetual resources are natural resources such as solar energy, wind, and tides that have no chance of being used in excess of their availability. They can be used for power generation and conversion to electric energy.
Who is Osama bin Laden?
Osama bin Laden is a Saudi Arabian militant and the leader of the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda, the base in Arabic. Al-Qaeda is a Sunni Muslim organization that was created from veterans of the struggle against the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. Bin Laden is the son of a wealthy Saudi Arabian family who made their fortune in the Saudi civil construction business. He was expelled from Saudi Arabia, moved to Sudan, and now is alleged to live in the border region between Afghanistan and Pakistan. He is thought to be the mastermind behind the attacks on the World Trade Center in New York and the Pentagon in Virginia. Bin Laden used his personal wealth to fund Mujahideen insurgents in Afghanistan after the Soviet withdrawal in 1989, and he organized bombings against various American interests, including the American embassies in Tanzania and Kenya in 1998. He demands the end of foreign influence in Muslim countries and the creation of a new Muslim caliphate. He has been waging a jihad, holy war, although many Muslims say this is a misuse of the term, to achieve his aims through violence and the killing of both civilians and military personnel. Bin Laden is on the FBI's most wanted list. A reward of $25 million for information leading to his arrest has been offered.
How can I obtain a flood map of my community?
The best way to see a flood insurance rate map, firm for your area would be to contact your local government. Their planning or emergency management agency should have the firm maps available. Purchasing them from FEMA is not recommended because the maps change often and are best interpreted by a planning or emergency expert.
Where is all the water?
Over 97% of the world's water lies in the oceans and is too salty to drink or to irrigate crops with. Except when the water is cleaned through a desalination plant, which is not done very often. About 2.8% of the world's water supply is fresh water. Of that 2.8%, about 2% is frozen in glaciers and ice sheets. This leaves only about 0.8% of the world's water that is accessible through aquifers, streams, lakes, and in the atmosphere. The water that we use primarily comes from this 0.8%.
Where is the Kalahari Desert?
The Kalahari Desert covers much of Botswana and Namibia. The Kalahari Desert is one of the largest deserts in the world, over 100,000 square miles. 259,000 square kilometers, and lies on a high plateau at 3,000 feet, 914 meters.
How long does it take to travel by train across Russia?
Depending on the number of stops the train makes. It can take anywhere from 5 to 8 days to travel across Russia. Ticket prices can be anywhere from $500 to more than $10,000. Which allows for the most pampered class of service. Train lines end in Irkutsk, Beijing, China, and even Vladivostok, along the eastern Pacific coast.
How many provinces are there in South Africa?
In 1994, several new provinces, states, were created. South Africa is now divided into 9 provinces: Eastern Cape, Free State, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northern Cape, Northwest, and Western Cape. The 9 provinces incorporate homelands of indigenous peoples.
How did Israel become a country?
European Jews, who had been persecuted for centuries in Europe, began to emigrate to the area we know as Palestine in the late 19th century. These new immigrants purchased land and set up communities in the vast desert and coastal areas. This area, which was under British administration, began to see a new influx of European Jews in the early part of the 20th century. After World War I, the United Kingdom issued the Balfour Declaration, which accepted the establishment of a Jewish state in present-day Palestine. At the time, Palestine was not comprised of countries, but was merely a collection of territories ruled by colonial powers such as the United Kingdom, France, and the United States. After World War II, hundreds of thousands of European Jews emigrated to the region, enough to cause the Arab community to revolt and riot against them. At this time, nearly 33% of all people in Palestine were Jewish. Jewish paramilitary groups increasingly fought against British occupying forces. The United Nations recognized Jerusalem as an international city for both Arabs and Jews, and it approved an interim plan to divide Palestine into Arab and Jewish states. The Jewish authorities accepted the plan, but new Arab countries that formed after World War I and World War II did not. One day before the British mandate of control over the Palestine region expired in May 1948, the State of Israel was proclaimed.
Where can you see the Great Wall?
There are several places where tourists may see the Great Wall that are within a netto 2-hour car ride from the capital city of Beijing. One of the most famous and most developed tourist areas is Badaling, where one can see both the Great Wall of China, in its restored and untouched splendor, and the nearby Ming tombs.
When was the first permanent British settlement established in the United States?
In 1607, the colony of Jamestown was established in Virginia by British colonists transported there by the London Company. Though subjected to many attacks by Native Americans, the colony was ultimately destroyed in 1676 by its own rebelling colonists in Bacon's Rebellion.
What is the difference between cultivation and domestication?
Cultivation is the deliberate attempt to sow and manage essentially wild plants and seed. Domestication is when people experiment and consciously select the right seeds to grow for various conditions.
How do sand dunes move?
Sand dunes are created and transported by wind. Wind blows sand from the windward side of the dune to the opposite side, slowly transporting it across the landscape.
How thick is Antarctica's ice?
Most of the ice in Antarctica is approximately 1 mile thick. Over 80% of the world's fresh water is stored in ice in Antarctica. Some have suggested that large chunks of ice be cut off from Antarctica and shipped to dry regions of the world, but this has yet to be done.
What is the oldest known map drawn to scale?
In the 6th century B.C., the Greek geographer Anaximander created the first known map drawn to scale. His map was circular, included known parts of Europe and Asia, and placed Greece at its center.
What is the world's largest Islamic nation?
Indonesia, the world's fourth most populated country, is the world's largest Islamic nation. About 87% of Indonesians are Muslims. Islam spread to Indonesia during the medieval era.
What are ice core samples and why are they important?
An ice core sample is a thick column of ice, sometimes hundreds of feet long, that is produced by drilling a circular pipe-like device into thick ice and then pulling out the cylindrical piece. Ice core samples from places like Greenland and Antarctica provide scientists with important clues about past climates. Air trapped in the ice remains there for thousands of years, so when scientists collect ice cores, they can analyze the air to determine the composition of the atmosphere at the time the ice was formed. Sediments and tiny bugs are also found in the ice and provide additional clues to the state of the natural world at the time the ice was deposited.
Which country lies completely within South Africa?
The tiny country of Lesotho, which gained independence from the British in 1966, is completely surrounded by South Africa. Nearly 40% of the male workers migrate to South Africa for employment.
Which river touches more countries than any other?
The Danube River, which begins in Germany, passes through or borders 10 countries in Europe. More than any other river in the world. On its journey, the Danube River encounters Germany, Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Serbia and Montenegro, Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova, and Ukraine.
What are the Alps?
The Alps are Europe's most famous mountain chain. Running east-west for approximately 700 miles, 1,125 kilometers. The Alps stretch from southeastern Spain to the Balkans, and include Mont Blanc, the highest point in Western Europe.
What is China's one-child rule?
In the late 1970s, the government of China decided that population control was needed because of a rapidly growing population that would soon outgrow the country's ability to feed itself. The policy mandated that every couple would only be allowed to have one child. The law exempts certain ethnic groups, rural families, and families where neither parent has no siblings. Punishment is strict and is primarily economic. China won't provide medical care or education funding for the second child. The one-child rule has been working and has slowed population growth, reducing the threat of overpopulation.
Do oases really exist?
Oases do exist and they are quite prevalent throughout the eastern Sahara Desert in Africa. An oasis has a source of water, often a spring, that allows vegetation to grow. Small towns are located at some larger oases in the desert. Oases have been traditional stopping places for nomads traveling across deserts.
What was the Berlin Wall?
At the end of World War II, Germany was divided into 4 zones, each occupied separately by the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and the USSR. The city of Berlin, while located entirely within the Soviet-occupied zone, was itself divided into 4 zones. Soon thereafter, the Soviets stopped cooperating with the other Allied powers. The 3 zones occupied by the United States, United Kingdom, and France joined together to create West Germany, while the Soviet zone became East Germany. A similar split occurred in the city of Berlin. The city of Berlin held the dichotomy of East versus West, communist versus capitalist. Many people who lived in East Berlin could see that those in West Berlin generally had a higher standard of living. It is estimated that over 2 million East Germans fled to the west within Berlin. In August 1961, the communist government, determined to stop this mass exodus, began to build the Berlin Wall, a wall that physically divided East and West Berlin. On the west side, the wall became the location of spray-painted messages that voiced free opinions. On the east side of the wall lay a deserted area of barbed wire and armed guards called No Man's Land. For decades, the Berlin Wall stood as the physical version of the psychological Iron Curtain that separated East from West. On November 8, 1989, the Berlin Wall came tumbling down. And soon thereafter the era of the Cold War also ended.
What were the earliest maps?
There are many examples demonstrating that humanity has been interested in its surroundings since the beginning of recorded history. In fact, written on the walls of caves in Lascaux, France, are three dots indicating the brightest stars in the sky, which are estimated to have been drawn around 14,000 BCE. Neolithic wall paintings found in Çatalhöyük, Turkey, show an early city plan from around 7500 BCE.
What should I do when a tornado approaches?
Try to get to the lowest level of the building, unless you are in a mobile home or outdoors, in which case you should seek a sturdy and safe shelter. Go to the center of the room and hide under a sturdy piece of furniture. Stay away from windows, hold onto the leg of a table or something else stable. And protect your head and neck with your arms.
How many people in the world are classified as urban dwellers?
%48 of the world, approximately 3 billion people, live in urban areas today. Another 52%, or 3.3 billion people, live in rural areas.
What is the National Flood Insurance Program?
The National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, was established by the U.S. federal government in 1956 as a subsidized insurance program for home and business owners. The government began the program by creating flood insurance rate maps, firm, showing the boundaries of 100-year and 500-year flood zones. The cost of the insurance is based on the flood risk. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, oversees the program and requires the purchase of flood insurance by any owner affected by a disaster before they can be provided with disaster assistance. This way, the next time a flood occurs, they will be insured.
What is the oldest continually occupied city in the United States?
St. Augustine, Florida, was founded in 1565 by Spanish explorer Pedro Menéndez de Aviles. St. Augustine is located on Florida's eastern, Atlantic coast and now has a population of approximately 12,000. It is not only the oldest continually occupied city in the United States, but also in all of North America.
What did the Mason-Dixon line originally divide?
while the Mason-Dixon line commonly refers to the division between the North and South in the eastern United States. It was originally a boundary between Pennsylvania and Maryland surveyed by Charles Mason and Jeremiah Dixon in 1763. During the Civil War, the boundary between Pennsylvania and Maryland was extended westward to represent the line between the slave and non-slave states.
What is a turnpike?
A turnpike is a toll road. In the late 18th century, private companies in the United States and in the United Kingdom built roads and charged users to pass. Beginning in the 1840s, turnpikes had to compete for traffic, and thus profits, with the railroads. The name turnpike is still common on toll highways in the eastern United States, such as the New Jersey Turnpike, the Massachusetts Turnpike, and the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
How far did the Islamic Empire spread?
At its widest extent, the Islamic Empire included most of northern Africa, Spain, and Portugal, the Balkan Peninsula, India, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, and the southern reaches of Russia. Islamic influence also spread east into western China. The areas that were under Islamic rule from the 7th through the 16th century CE still keep the religion as a major aspect of their culture.
When was the first freeway built in the United States?
The first freeway, lacking tolls and having limited access in the United States, was the Arroyo Seco Freeway, connecting Pasadena and downtown Los Angeles. It opened in 1940 and is now the Pasadena Freeway, Highway 110.
What makes New Delhi so new?
From 1773 to 1912, the capital of India was Calcutta. Then was moved to Delhi in 1912. Because the British wanted to build a brand new capital city, they began to construct a new city adjacent to Delhi, now known as Old Delhi. When construction was completed on this new city in 1931, it became the capital of India and was known as New Delhi. The metropolitan area of Old and New Delhi is one of the world's largest urban areas, containing a population of over 16 million people.
How many volcanoes does Iceland have?
Iceland, formed by volcanoes along the mid-Atlantic ridge, is home to more than 100 volcanoes. Of these, more than 20 have erupted over the past few centuries.
How many African countries were independent in 1950?
In 1950 there were only 4 independent countries on the continent: Egypt, South Africa, Ethiopia, and Liberia. All other countries gained their independence in the decades that followed. Most recently, Eritrea became independent of Ethiopia in 1993.
Who else controls the price of gas besides oil producers?
There are many factors that influence the price of gas. Among them are the rising demand for fuel from developed countries such as the United States, new and growing demand from China and India, market speculation, and public policy. The refining industry, which is under government regulation, is also consolidated into the hands of a very few global refiners. This has the potential for removing competitive pricing.
What type of calendar was used in the Soviet Union between 1929 and 1940?
The Soviets created the revolutionary calendar, which had 5 days in a week. 4 for work, the 5th as a day off, and 6 weeks in a month. 5 days, 6 during leap year, were added at the end of the year to add up to 365, or 366, days.
Who is a peon?
A peon is a farm laborer in Central America who works on large farms known as haciendas.
What is the tallest self-supporting structure in the world?
The CN Tower in Toronto, Canada, built as a television transmission tower, is the world's tallest self-supporting structure, at 1,815 feet, 553 meters.
Which South American country was the first to gain independence from colonial rule?
In 1816, Argentina gained independence from Spain. International recognition of the independent country, then called the United Provinces of the Plate River, did not come until 1823, when the United States recognized the new state.
Which Middle Eastern country currently has the longest ruling leader?
Hosni Mubarak has been the head of state of Egypt since 1981.
Where on the planet is it light 24 hours a day in the summer?
In the extreme north and south parts of the Earth, north of 66.5 degrees north, and south of 66.5 degrees south latitudes. It is light 24 hours a day during the summer and dark 24 hours a day during the winter. Northern cities like Reykjavik, Iceland, and Murmansk, Russia, have nearly 24 hours of daylight for a short period of time during the summer months.
What is geologic time?
Geologic time is a time scale that divides the history of the planet Earth into eras, periods, and epochs from the birth of the planet to the present. The oldest era is the Precambrian, which began 4.6 billion years ago and ended about 570 million years ago. Next came the Paleozoic era, which lasted from 570 to 245 million years ago. Followed by the Mesozoic era, from 245 to 66 million years ago. We're now living in the Cenozoic era, which began 66 million years ago. The Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic eras are each divided into periods. Additionally, the Cenozoic era is divided into even smaller units of time called epochs. The last 10,000 years, the time since the last significant ice age, is called the Holocene epoch.
Is the Middle East a desert?
Actually, very little of the region is filled with sand dunes and sandstorms. Coastal areas are temperate, and several areas boast very pleasant and moist Mediterranean climates. A lack of water is a problem for agriculture throughout the region. So countries are experimenting with technological solutions such as desalination plants and drip agriculture for water conservation.
What's the difference between Greenwich Mean Time, Universal Coordinated Time, and Zulu time?
Greenwich Mean Time, GMT, Universal Coordinated Time, UTC, and Zulu time are three different names for the same time zone. This time zone is situated at the prime meridian, 0 degrees longitude, and runs through the Royal Observatory at Greenwich, a section of London, England. It is the prime meridian from which other longitudes are determined, east and west.
Where does Asia end and Europe begin?
Though Europe and Asia are actually part of one large landmass, tradition has split the region into two continents along the Ural Mountains in western Russia.
What different types of lightning are there?
There are four types of lightning: cloud to cloud, within a cloud, cloud to ground, and cloud to air. Of course, cloud to ground is the most dangerous form of lightning. Especially in the spring and summer months, when more people are more likely to be outside.
Which country is the world's leading bauxite producer?
Australia mines more bauxite than any other country in the world, producing 33% of the world's supply annually. An ore of aluminum, bauxite is especially prevalent in Australia's Darling Range. Located in the southwestern part of the country.
What percentage of the world's poor live in South America?
Approximately 3.93% of all of the world's poor people live in South America. They are mostly concentrated in Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, and Ecuador. Poor is defined as people having incomes of less than $1 per day.
Where is the Rust Belt?
The Rust Belt is a term used to describe the United States' declining manufacturing region of the Northeast and Midwest. Factory closures, especially those of steel and textile mills, have resulted in massive unemployment and declining population in Rust Belt cities. The Rust Belt runs from about Minnesota to Massachusetts.
Who was Che Guevara?
Beto Che Guevara, 1928 to 1967, was an Argentine Marxist revolutionary, physician, author, and guerrilla leader. He formed his political ideas after seeing the extreme poverty in Latin America. Believing that the cause was economic inequality due to monopolistic capitalism, neocolonialism, and imperialism. He was instrumental in helping Cuba's Fidel Castro overthrow the U.S.-backed dictator Fulgencio Batista.
What was Pangea?
About 250 million years ago. All of the land on Earth was lumped together into one large continent known as Pangea. Faults and rifts broke the land masses apart and pushed them away from each other. The continents slowly moved across the Earth to their present positions, and they continue to move today. The Indian subcontinent, composed of India and its neighbors, continues to push into Asia and create the Himalayas.
How was the New World divided between Spain and Portugal?
In 1493 Pope Alexander VI divided the New World into Spanish and Portuguese spheres of influence. A line was placed 100 leagues, about 300 miles 480 kilometers. West of the Azores Islands, located several hundred miles west of Portugal in the Atlantic Ocean. Everything in the New World to the east of this demarcation line, which lay off the east coast of South America, belonged to Portugal, while the lands in the west belonged to Spain. Since this division provided little land for Portugal, the Portuguese were dissatisfied. The Treaty of Tordesillas established a new line about 800 miles. 1,300 kilometers, to the west of the old line. Pope Julius II approved the line in 1506.
How did the ancient Romans get water to their cities?
The ancient Romans and Mesopotamians built aqueducts to transport water between a source and areas where it was needed for agriculture or civilization. The Roman system was very extensive, and was constructed throughout its empire. Some portions of these ancient aqueducts are still in use. Today, modern concrete-lined channels transport water hundreds of miles. The most extensive aqueduct systems in the world today are those that bring water to southern California from the Colorado River in the east and from the Sacramento River in the north.
What was the Klondike Gold Rush?
In 1896, gold was discovered in an area of western Canada known as the Klondike. Located in the Yukon Territory where the Klondike and Yukon rivers meet. Once the news of the discovery spread, tens of thousands of people headed west, creating the Klondike Gold Rush.
What is the Oglala Aquifer?
The Oglala Aquifer is a huge aquifer that spans an area from Texas to Colorado and Nebraska. The oldest water deposited in the aquifer is over 1 million years old. And only a very small amount of water is added each year. The Oglala Aquifer is being pumped rapidly by the farms in the region, causing a reduction in the amount of water in the aquifer. Consequently, wells have to be continually deepened so that they can continue to pump water.
How dry is Antarctica?
Though Antarctica is covered with ice, it is the driest continent on the planet. The ice in Antarctica has been there for thousands of years, and the continent receives less than 2 inches. 5 centimeters of precipitation annually. The Sahara Desert receives 10 inches, 25 centimeters, each year.
Where is the Yucatan?
The Yucatan is a large peninsula in southern Mexico. The Yucatan Peninsula points toward Florida and separates the Gulf of Mexico from the Caribbean Sea.
What is the windiest place on Earth?
Mt. Washington, New Hampshire, is the windiest place. In 1934, regular wind speeds were clocked at 231 miles, 372 kilometers, per hour.
Do all roads really lead to Rome?
Not anymore. During the time of the Roman Empire, the Romans built a massive road network to ensure easy travel in all weather conditions between Rome and the furthest reaches of the empire. The Romans made their roads as straight as possible and paved large sections of them by precisely piecing together cut rock to make a flat surface. Along the 50,000 miles, 80,000 kilometers, of Roman roads, markers were placed every Roman mile, just short of a modern mile, so as to indicate either the distance to Rome or to the city where the road originated. After the fall of Rome, the maintenance of the Roman road system was severely neglected. And during the Middle Ages the roads became overused and dilapidated. Though the Romans built these roads over 2,000 years ago, some segments are still in use today.
Where is the farthest point from land?
In the middle of the southern Pacific Ocean lies a spot that is 1,600 miles. 2,574 kilometers, from any land. Located at 47 degrees 30 minutes south, 120 degrees west. This spot is equidistant from Antarctica, Australia, and Pitcairn Island.
What's the difference between England, Great Britain, and the United Kingdom?
Northeast of France lie two large islands. Great Britain to the east and Ireland to the west. On the island of Great Britain there are three regions. England in the southeast, Wales in the southwest, and Scotland in the north. The other island, Ireland, is divided into two political divisions. The region called Northern Ireland in the north and the country of Ireland in the south. The United Kingdom is a country that includes all three regions on the island of Great Britain. England, Wales, and Scotland, and the one northern region on the island of Ireland, Northern Ireland.
Who invented the traffic signal?
the red, yellow, and green traffic signal that we are familiar with today, was originally invented by Garrett Morgan in 1923. Morgan, who was also the inventor of the gas mask, received numerous awards for his invention.
Which Russian city is among the most expensive in the world?
Moscow is ranked 37th in the world, in terms of expensive cities to live in. It is just ahead of Singapore, Athens, Greece, and Caracas, Venezuela.
How big is Russia?
With 6.6 million square miles, 17 million square kilometers, and 145 million people. Russia is Europe's largest country and also its most populous. Additionally, Russia is the largest country in the world and the world's sixth most populous. Within Europe, the second largest country is the Ukraine, with 233,100 square miles. 603,729 square kilometers, and the second most populous country is Germany, with 82 million people.
Where was Checkpoint Charlie?
Checkpoint Charlie was a famous crossing point on the Berlin Wall between East and West Berlin. Used mainly by tourists and U.S. military personnel.
How does India's caste system work?
The caste system is the extremely rigid, hierarchical social class system of India. Based on the ancient Hindu text law of Manu, the caste system consists of 4 categories: Brahmans, priests, Kshatriyas, warriors, Vaishyas, merchants, and Sudras, servants. There are many people who are considered to be outside of the caste system, or who have no caste, called the Harijans or untouchables. The untouchables serve the most menial jobs and live literally outside of the social class system. The caste system in India dictates not only one's profession, but also whom one can marry, social contacts, and all other aspects of life.
What was the intent of Magellan's expedition?
Ferdinand Magellan left Europe in 1519 hoping to circumnavigate the globe. He succeeded in reaching the Philippines in 1521, where he was later killed by natives. Though 5 ships and 241 men left Europe on September 20, 1519, only one ship, the Victoria, returned to Spain with 18 men on September 6, 1522. Despite Ferdinand Magellan's death on April 27. 1521, during a war in the Philippines, the Magellan expedition successfully circumnavigated the globe.
What is the world's shortest river?
The world's shortest river is Oregon's Dee River, which is a mere 120 feet long, 36.6 meters. It connects Devil's Lake to the Pacific Ocean near Lincoln City, Oregon.
What are the 7 seas?
The 7 seas spoken of by mariners from long ago are oceans or parts of oceans. The Atlantic and Pacific Oceans are so large that they were each divided into 2 seas. The Antarctic, Indian, and Arctic were also considered seas, thus totaling 7. If a sailor had sailed upon all 7 seas, he had sailed around the world. There are not just 7 but dozens of seas in the world.
What is the difference between snow and hail?
Snow is water vapor that freezes in clouds before falling to the earth. Hail is water droplets, raindrops, that have turned to ice in clouds.
What is the lowest point in the world on land?
The world's lowest point is at the Dead Sea on the border of Israel and Jordan. It is 1,312 feet, 400 meters, below sea level.
Where do the illegal immigrants come from?
Approximately 57% of illegal immigrants come from Mexico, 11% from Central America, 9% from East Asia, 8% from South America, and 4% from Europe and the Caribbean.
What is the difference between GNP and GDP?
GDP, or Gross Domestic Product, is the value of all goods and services produced in a country in a year. GNP, or Gross National Product, is the total value of GDP plus all income from investments around the world. Per capita GDP is usually compared between countries.
How valuable is a college education in the United States?
Workers in the United States with at least a bachelor's degree earn an average of $51,206 per year. High school graduates can expect to earn $27,915 per year. while those who did not complete high school earn $18,734 on average. Workers who earned an advanced degree can make on average $74,602 per year.
What is a glacier?
A glacier is a mass of ice that stays frozen throughout the year and flows downhill. Glaciers are capable of carving rock with their weight and slow, steady movement. They are responsible for the stunning landscape of Yosemite National Park in California. Large glaciers that cover the land are also known as ice sheets.
What is a bullet train?
Bullet trains, or Shinkansen, as they are called in Japan, are similar to traditional passenger trains, but have been enhanced to travel at speeds of up to 215 miles per hour, 346 kilometers per hour. They have been used in Japan since 1965. In 2003, Japan set a world record. Testing another generation of bullet trains capable of exceeding 361 miles per hour, 581 kilometers per hour.
What is the smallest country in Southeast Asia?
The Republic of Singapore is the smallest country in Southeast Asia. It covers only 272 square miles, 707 square kilometers, of land.
Why were 10 days lost from the year in 1582?
In 46 CE, Julius Caesar implemented the Julian calendar, which was 11 minutes longer than a solar year. By 1582, those 11 minutes each year had added up to 10 days. Pope Gregory XIII aligned the calendar with the solar year by declaring October 5, 1582, to be October 15, 1582, in the Catholic regions of the world, thus correcting for the 10 lost days.
Where is the land of the rising sun?
The Japanese name for Japan, Nippon, which means origin of the sun, evolved into land of the rising sun. The name probably derived from the fact that for centuries, Japan was the easternmost known land, and thus where the sun seemed to rise.
How can a legend help me read a map?
The legend, usually found in a box on the map, is information that explains the symbols used on a map. Though some symbols seem standard, like a railroad line, Even those can be represented differently on different maps. Since there really are no standard symbols, each map's legend should be consulted when reading a map.
Why does Hawaii have interstate highways?
Since any freeway funded under the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956 is known as an interstate highway. Whether it crosses state boundaries or not, Hawaii can have interstate highways. Though they cross no state borders, Hawaii has 3 interstate highways, H1, H2, and H3.
Which river carries more water than any other in the world?
Though the Amazon River is the second longest in the world, 4,000 miles over 6,400 kilometers. It carries more water to the ocean than does any other river in the world.
If the Earth is so large, why did Columbus think that India was close enough to reach by sailing west from Europe?
The Greek geographer Posidonius did not believe Eratosthenes' earlier calculation. So he performed his own measurement of the Earth's circumference and arrived at the figure of 18,000 miles, 28,962 kilometers. Columbus used the circumference estimated by Posidonius when he argued his plan before the Spanish court. The 7,000-mile, 11,263 kilometer, difference between the actual circumference and the one Columbus used led him to believe he could reach India rather quickly by sailing west from Europe.
What is the channel?
The Channel Tunnel, or Channel, is a railroad tunnel under the Strait of Dover in the English Channel. The channel runs for 31 miles, 50 kilometers, between Folkestone, near Dover, in the United Kingdom, and Sangatte, near Calais, in France. Opened in 1994, the channel connects England with the rest of continental Europe.